actually to the third Crazy Talented Asians and Friends. This is a really great honor to be here with you, as well as those friends and fans on YouTube live streaming. I know there are a lot of fans out there online right now. Again, we're broadcasting live. It's wonderful to have a live event from New York City. This is, as I said, the third year we have Crazy Talented Asians and Friends, and we have a series of music, live comedy, and nature shorts throughout the next couple of months. But I'm so glad to kick it off with this group of three very talented musicians here. We're going to have a wonderful program. We just heard their rehearsal. It was just Eastern and Western music all together, such energy, such musicality. Really, as I said in the program, world-class level musicians. What we have prepared for you today is a series of music by Handel, Ravel, Bach, Mendelssohn, as well as Pei-Ling Wu, and some erhu music of Chinese songs. And also, most importantly, we would like to have a conversation with the musicians about their journey as a musician, what drives them to keep creating, what makes them a successful musician. And is it about practicing, or should you stop practicing? Of course, I know there are some children learning music right now. Maybe you'll tell me what the answer is at the end of the program. So without further ado, let me just first introduce the three musicians, and I'll just read their bio briefly, and because their bio is just so long, but I'll just highlight them. The first one is pianist Sean Chen, and as you know, he's a prize-winning pianist from Cliburn. As well, he's now a resident faculty at the University of Missouri Conservatory. He recently just released an album under the Steinway Sons album label. He's fantastic. I hope you enjoyed it. Actually, a little story with Sean. I've been following him since he was a child, and I've been trying to get a concert together with him since he started auditioning at Juilliard, probably years ago, because now he's the father of two children, so it's long. Good things come together at the end. Second musician is a wonderful Siwoo Kim. He is a violinist. As New York Times says, I'll quote, his incisive and compelling playing, and he plays with stylistic sensitivity and generous tonal nuance from Chicago Tribune. He is also co-founding artistic director of Vivo Music Festival in his hometown of Columbus, Ohio. So these musicians actually come from far away just to play for us. And the third musician is Andy Lin. He is recognized as one of the most promising and the only active performers specialized in both Western and Eastern instruments. And he's praised by the Strad, the great Molto Adagio, and he's also a virtuoso on the erhu, and you'll get to hear him play erhu and violin and piano together. And for the Q&A session that will be moderated by Professor Greg Williams from Aaron Copland Music School at Queens College, and I will introduce him later. But first of all, let me just introduce the first piece of the program, which is a piece of music duo for violin and viola by Handel and Halvorsen. It's the Passacaglia for violin and viola. Please welcome the musicians. It's by Kim and Lin. Please give them applause.
while he moves stuff around, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the two pieces I'll be playing. They're both transcriptions, and later on we'll talk about what that means. But basically, I hear music I like that's not for piano, and I steal it, and I play it on the piano. My wife is a violinist, so I hear lots of violin music. And this first piece by Bach is one of the most, I think, beautiful solo violin pieces. And anything Bach wrote was obviously very, very, very good. I heard it a lot, and one day I just sat down and kind of improvised something, and then went back, sat down with pen and paper, and kind of fleshed it out. So that's what you will hear first. And then the second piece is something that I recently finished. It's originally for 8 string instruments, and I've tried to put it on the piano for 2 hands. And it was a big challenge, and it's always a challenge to play, but I think, I hope you'll find it just as exciting as it is for me to play it. So hope you enjoyed the Bach and the Mendelssohn arrangements. Thank you. And now I will be joined by Andy Lin, and we're going to do the chardash. He's going to do it on the erhu. Hello! You want to talk a little bit about playing it on the erhu? Because I'm sure many of you have not heard this piece.
The piece itself?
Oh, no, I'm sure everyone's heard the piece.
So I'll be playing the erhu for you. The erhu is a traditional Chinese instrument, and there are two strings. So basically means two in Chinese. I'm sure many of you know what it is. But it's not only because there are two strings that it's called the erhu, but also because the erhu used to not be a solo instrument. It used to be secondary to the voice to complement the voice singers. And the erhu, people used to play in the northern part of China from the Mongol part. And it can imitate a lot of different animals, which you will hear in our last piece with the violin and also the piano. So the next piece we're going to play for you is actually a piece by Monti, Italian composer, and it was originally for the violin, and I've transcribed it for the erhu. So I hope you guys will enjoy it. Thank you.
Now I'm joined by my other friend, Siwoo. Hi. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this gun?
Sure. Hi, I'm Siwoo. Thank you for being here, and for those of you tuning in, hello. Hi. The next work that we'll be sharing with you is by Maurice Ravel, a French composer, and the work is titled Cigane, which means gypsy. Legend has it that Ravel wrote this piece for his friend Jali Darni. She was a Hungarian violinist. Apparently overnight, he just had her over, they were hanging out. He was like, is this possible on the violin? Is this possible on the violin? Well, they explored a lot of possibilities to do on the violin because it goes through just about every pyrotechnic available, but with Ravel's class of orchestration and harmonies and just beautiful tonal nuances that he just writes inherently into the music. We don't really have to do much besides just play the piece for it to sound amazing. And one thing you may notice is that the theme sounds slightly Asian, and that's because Ravel employed a lot of pentatonics in his works, and the theme itself will be explored in different variations, stretching the technique of and colors of both the violin and piano. Enjoy.
Check, technology. So the last piece we're gonna play for you is called Wildlife Suite. And it's basically a combination, two Chinese pieces combined together. The first one is called Birds Singing in the Empty Mountain, 空山鸟语. And the other one is Battle Horses Galloping, 战马奔腾. So you'll hear I'll be imitating birds with Siwoo, and I'll also be imitating all kinds of different sounds that a horse can make. So we hope you enjoyed the last piece, and we'll talk to you soon after the last piece. Thank you.
Yeah, I know.
wonderful. Between the birds chirping and the horse galloping, I think the spring is just around the corner. As a matter of fact, I was told that it's Sunday. So I hope you get to enjoy the warm weather today and also the coming up few months. That was just fantastic music. So I hope you got a good taste of how wonderful these musicians are and the diverse talents they have. And we're really honored to bring this to you and to all the fans on the YouTube live streaming. Next coming up is another wonderful segment I call the conversation with the musicians. How talents are developed, what their journey is being like, especially in this country. I believe all of them are immigrants or part of the immigrant family. So how do they keep up? And do they just keep practicing until they get recognized? Or how do they become such successful musicians? So helping us moderate that is Professor Greg Williams. He is the viola faculty of Aaron Copland Music School of Queens College, just around the neighborhood here. We're very honored to have him join us today. He actually hosts Viola Day for high school kids. For those young kids in the audience that are interested in learning more about music instrument, talk to Professor Williams afterwards, please. Professor Williams himself is a very accomplished violist. He's actually part of the Golden Williams duo. It's a viola and cello duo, and they focus on diverse composers. He also just released, it's coming out to release a concept album on the new musical Goodbye New York. And the other one, I think he is also working on the Raphael project. So please talk to him afterwards. But we're really honored to have Professor Williams to join us together with the three wonderful, talented musicians on stage to have the conversation and share the comment with you. Let's give them a round of applause to welcome them on stage, please.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's a true honor to be here on stage among the really esteemed musicians. Let's give them another round of applause. It's also a real honor for me to be here tonight to represent the Aaron Copland School of Music over at Queens College, just down the road. And also thank you to Ming-Yi for joining me on this event, or inviting me to join in on this event, and for all of her efforts to make tonight possible. So I have a couple of questions. I'm not going to use the card the whole time, I promise. But I wanted to start off as a question just to get your ideas on Pei-Ling Wu's Wildlife Suite. I wanted to know a little bit more about the folk songs. You mentioned one was about birds, the other was horses, and at times I felt like I heard other animals in there as well.
Oops. Such as?
Well, it definitely sounded like different species of birds for one. And there were moments where I was curious to know, was it the conversational dialogue between violin and erhu, was that meant to be more improvisatory, or is it written out? And if so, how?
Well, a little bit, because the birds, also the horses, both pieces were originally written for erhu and yangqin, or it can be played with piano or orchestra. And this arrangement is specifically for this combination. Mm-hmm. And well, it was a little meant to be, we should enjoy being a little spontaneous improvisation. And yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm not sure where the other animals coming from.
I'm not sure either, but it definitely is. Before you described the piece, when I was hearing all of you during the rehearsal, I was trying to figure out what the wildlife was. The horses I definitely hear, the birds I definitely hear, but at times it felt like there were other animals being chased.
The New York City pigeons?
Maybe, yes. New York City pigeons would definitely fit into that category, although they're usually quieter. So. Okay, so now on to the more serious questions. I felt like part of my role tonight is to be almost like a George Stephanopoulos of sorts, asking the tough questions. But I guess my first question this is for all of you, and feel free to carry on the conversation since you've all known each other for a fair amount of time. How did you get started as musicians, and what brought you to the instruments that you are all playing now?
One at a time?
Yeah.
Sure. I was born in South Korea, and I'm an only child, but my mother ran a music school by the time I was born, and the home was located within the school. So it was a very natural process for me to take up an instrument as a social activity, really. Like, I had made friends by crawling around and banging on the piano, or like, you know. And I guess she wanted me to explore options because she realized that I do have an interest for music naturally, because the environment was conducive to it. But I eventually gravitated towards the violin because I thought it was the most portable with my, like 3-year-old hands. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Well, mine might take a while. So I'm not the only child. I have an older sister. She plays the piano. And so I was born in Taiwan. And in Taiwan, there's a Yamaha, the keyboard, the school. And there's a slogan in the commercial that says, children who learns classical music will have good discipline. And that's how me and my sister both started and like instruments. I studied on piano when I was 5, and then violin when I was 6. And when I was 8 years old, I also picked up viola and erhu. And when I was 11, I picked up gaohu, which is a different erhu. So I was playing 5 instruments at the same time for like about a year. And when I came to the States, I was focusing on the viola and the erhu only.
Yeah, I have these baby videos of me I watch, and at like 1, I'm crawling around, and there's a little portable keyboard, and I was banging on it. And my parents actually had a couple of friends when they went to grad school, and the lady was in the music program at University of Florida. So she would take me to see the actual pianos in the practice rooms because I just had a little keyboard, And I think that just kind of grew out of that. I just started playing piano. There was always music in my family. No musicians, no professional musicians. My grandpa, he's actually still alive in Taipei, and he plays a lot of the guoyue, and he also ran a community orchestra and things like that. So when I went back there, I heard him play. Here in the States, my dad would play guitar, and I'd listen to 70s music and Elton John and Eric Clapton, and so there was always stuff going on. And sometimes I like to jam with my dad, so I kind of learned how to play a little bit that way. Started piano lessons, and then normal stuff.
No, that's really awesome that you all have that music runs within your family. It's similar for my family too. So it's awesome to hear that this is a common thread. For so many of us. So I wanted to know, since part of, as an educator, it's hard for me to even say the words "stop practicing," because otherwise I might be out of a job. But I do want to know what does practicing, or when you were younger, I would imagine that practicing was a very integral part of your life, and it's probably evolved. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, I guess, one by one. We don't have to keep going in the same order. So.
Sure. Okay, I'll start. So yes, when I was a kid, obviously your parents, they're like, I'm paying money for you to take lessons. Why aren't you practicing? But actually, if they got me to the piano, I enjoyed being at the piano. And if I didn't want to practice, I'd improvise and play the Disney music or video game music I liked. But I think, when we're talking, we have this headline, right? Should we stop practicing? I think part of the perspective is, and the important thing to realize is like just practicing is not enough, right? Millions of people all over the world practice every day, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a career in music, right? And then the other thing that I always tell my students is you'll never have as much time to practice as you do right now. Like the older you get, the more responsibilities you have, the more, life gets in the way. I have 2 kids now, so my practice time is quite low. But all that stuff you do when you're a kid, I think is super important as a foundation. But I think as you get older, and we can discuss it, that the type of practicing you do is different. It's not like 8 hours a day at your instrument. It's not helpful in a way.
Yeah. I will clarify that the title says "Stop Practicing?" ? Right. So, no, you should still practice. But it's just like understanding that there are many more layers if you want like a career in music. And also the idea that practicing is not, it's quality over quantity. I think when I was younger, I really was like trying to fill in the hours, especially when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old. Some of the most crucial times, I think, to really build your foundation. But yeah, these days, like Sean says, I run my own festival as well, and I'm also traveling around playing with different chamber ensembles or playing concertos, and it's a lot of repertoire to juggle, and living, life gets complicated. So I think the way I practice these days is more like mental now. I know that I can rely on my physical execution because I've done the laying down the groundwork when I was younger, which is important for students to do right now. Yeah, so I spend more time in my head like thinking, how do I want to sculpt this phrase? Or maybe I should put in some new fingerings or bowings here. Or should I put in some cues here? And then when I practice, it's the act of trying out those ideas. And I can significantly diminish the number of hours that I spend just like doodling around, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Right, I mean, you guys cover most of the things I wanted to say. But I'm not sure if I have students down here, so I want to make sure I say the right things. Like Siwoo said, quantity is more important than, quality is more important than quantity. And I remember when I was younger, I don't really like piano, but I had to learn the piano when I was in Taiwan. And so I know I try to read comics with my left hand. I'll practice with my right hand. And that way I think my parents wouldn't, realize I wasn't practicing at all. But when I am doing something I really like, the violin, the viola, the erhu, I actually can focus a lot better. And like what they said, the older you get, we don't have the luxury of the time to practice anymore. We have a million other things to do. We travel a lot. We have to play different instruments. So the amount of time that we can spend on our instruments become very, very little. And practicing smart is important. And I think that's what we all learn from our teachers, especially a lot of the successful musicians. I think we all have very good teachers, I have to say. And I think that becomes a very important part of our life.
I will say just like one last thing on the subject. I teach a couple students, and I was talking with my one other student the other day, Gen Z, millennial right here. But we were talking, and he said he just enjoys practicing so much. I was like, okay, you get some, 4.5 gold stars for you. But he was saying like how he's just so aware. He was saying that he feels like he has been born and is growing up in a world where things are just like immediately accessible or so convenient. And he enjoys spending time with the violin because if he practices, he could see tangible growth, and that's so much fun for him to like, that there's no shortcut.
Absolutely, yeah. With my own students, I'm very envious of and this I guess goes for all these students out there, both here and on listening from YouTube. You're all very lucky that there are so many recordings out there that are accessible, so many different forms of technology that make practicing not only more fun, but easier, because then you can always record yourself just on your phone and go and listen back, and that cuts a lot of the time that it takes to actually improve on certain things. So I guess my next question for you then is, in addition to practicing, what are the other skill sets that you've needed to develop to get your careers to where they are now?
Okay, I'll go first. Well, these days, in 21st century, playing very well doesn't give you a good career anymore. And there are so many soloists, there are so many amazing, talented musicians out there. And how do you stand out from everyone? It gets very objective. And I run a chamber music society called the New Asia CMS. And in the beginning, the reason why I started the organization is because I know once we got out of school, if people don't hire us, if people don't invite us for concerts, now we need to provide ourselves opportunities. And that's why I started this organization, so I can give myself opportunities and I can give my friends a platform to perform. And once you start running an organization, then you realize you cannot just stay home and practice because no one's gonna come to your concert if you didn't meet anyone out there. And if you need people to come, you need sponsorship, you need donations, then you need to start making connections with people. And so that becomes a lot more important. You want to take over for now?
Yeah. No. I second a lot of things that Andy says because, like him, I started like my own organization, and that came from the idea that there's a certain when you're in your childhood, teens, you should really enjoy life and set up all your foundation in your playing. And once you get to the collegiate level and perhaps graduate school level, start really thinking about what makes you really excited within music, and dare to think how can classical music or what I love about classical music be relevant to the society that I live in today. So for instance, my Chamber Music Festival happens in Columbus, Ohio, my hometown. I felt like it was such a shame that the art scene there was really dwindling. The orchestra was getting cut, and people were losing their jobs, and my parents immigrated here and sacrificed so much for me to be able to play the way I do with the colleagues I play with, and they never get to really hear it. So I thought, why not start a festival there that can try to rejuvenate the interest, awareness, and excitement for classical music and chamber music in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio, and as a vicarious, selfish benefit, my parents and my family and my friends in my hometown get to hear me play with amazing colleagues. And again, like Andy says, it provides a platform for my colleagues to play, and also for myself as well. And then, I guess the one thing that I'd like to say on top of that wonderful point that you made about creating your own opportunities is that you should just be nice. I think if I think about all the things that I've done, all the things that I've been recommended to by colleagues or by people who just work with me, whether they're older or younger, I think they enjoyed working with me. The playing is almost just you should be able to play well for you to have gotten that gig. But if you want to be hired for something else or be recommended, people are really on the lookout now for people who are easy to work with and kind and fun, hopefully.
Yeah, I think this point Siwoo made is very, very important because it's not about the first performance you do with whatever presenter. It's about being asked back by the presenter, the Chamber Music Society, the orchestra, whatever it is. And I think so many musicians just focus on just practicing. And it's hard to know all these things of what you should do when you're older, but it's important to, even when you're in school, actually with your friends, to be nice and to make connections, because they're going to be the ones graduating, and they're going to start their own music festivals, start their own chamber music societies, teach this place, play here, whatever, and they will talk about people in good and bad ways. Unfortunately, it's just human nature. And if you are nice to them, they know you, they respect you. I mean, obviously, if you play well, that's important, but the other things are also very important because word of mouth is still, even in this day and age with technology, it's still people talking to other people that get stuff done. And it's not just music, right? It's any business, any company, anything, any field you work in. It's a human element. So I think that's definitely a quality. And the other thing I want to point to as an important quality is kind of faith in yourself, in what your musical voice is, which is a very general and ambiguous thing to say sometimes, especially with younger musicians. But I think each of us have things musically that we, that are principles for us. It may be not articulatable to you or to other people, but I think we know deep down inside what makes us happy when we play, or what makes us happy when we listen to someone else do the same things we do or have the same principles that we do. And to not lose sight of that, even if you're exploring and doing this and all this stuff, I think having that core belief in yourself and what you like about music is super important. Just because there's so many other things to think about, yeah.
Right, to add on top of what they both said, so when we were back in our time, when we were in school, the only thing the school taught us was practicing, right? Just keep practicing, and once you graduate, you'll find a job, you'll get opportunities. But that's no longer the case. I mean, you can win a competition, you'll get one concert, right? and like what Sean said, being asked back to perform again becomes the next challenge. And it's good that these days the schools, they teach you how to market yourself. And I think, at least for me and Siwoo, when we are running our own organization, we know how difficult it is to bring people to the concerts. And so knowing how to market ourselves, as well as knowing what's important to our music, and that becomes very important.
Absolutely. I feel like the shift has been happening certainly while we were all in undergrad and grad school. And even during my master's, one of my teachers was like, no, you don't need to take those marketing courses. You'll just win an audition or something like that. And no, it didn't really quite work that way. I had to still learn how to market myself as well. So I guess the next question that I have, and this is, again, for all of you, but you can take it whichever direction you want, is apart from music, what other interests did you have either growing up or now? And were you torn at certain points in your life to go in other directions?
When I was a kid, I really loved to draw and like paint. My mom's music school, apparently, as a toddler, I would like draw all over the walls, and then they would repaint it once a month to clean it up. And then I was getting some private lessons on it, and my mom was like, "Well, if you're going to be an artist, that's even less likelihood of you being financially stable." But I travel a lot, and that drawing aspect has transferred into like photos. I really like taking pictures, as these guys probably know. So that's my hobby. Besides, also like I swam a lot because I had to get over my fear of swimming.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Andy?
I didn't know that. I've known you for so long. I didn't know you draw. For me, I like to volunteer and also to involve in different charity organizations. And for me, that's something very important in my life. And especially being an artist, being a musician, I think we have the best thing to actually provide to the community. And so I spend a lot of my time in the Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce, Staff United Fund, and also playing for many elders in the nursing homes and senior homes. And I think that fulfilled my life in general.
Yeah, I kind of grew up not knowing that I wanted to do music, actually. I was obviously practiced and was obviously gifted, but plenty of kids are gifted, I think I was pretty, like, typical of a child. Like, I played video games, read books, watched TV a lot, played with my two brothers. And I went to public school. I didn't do piano at a prep school or anything. It's just a private teacher. So, when I was applying for undergrad, college actually, I did both academic and conservatories. But because of the piano stuff that I was doing competitions and all that stuff, that helped me get into some of the academic schools, really good academic schools. But in the end, I had to ask myself, like, they accepted me because of this other thing that I was doing, and not because, my grades were good, but plenty of people's grades are good. But they accepted me for that thing. And what does it mean if I'm just going to throw that away and go do music?
Right.
Go do, just chemical, material science or whatever it was. And in a way, I felt like, even though music seems, for many of us, seems like an unknown project, when you go into music, to me, I knew what I was needed to do. I go to music school, I need to practice, I need to do these things. I had kind of a map. Whereas with the academics, I'd never done anything competitive in academics. My grades are good, but that doesn't mean much, So I felt like I would actually be more lost if I went there, and I would have to find myself and do all that kind of stuff. And then the other thing is like music you have to do when you're young. This technical stuff, it's like we are all athletes in that way. And you have to lay those foundations when you're young, or else if you take, 2 years off or 4 years off, and then you decide, oh, I really want to go back and practice piano again. People can do it, but I just think that the chances are small that you can really achieve that level after, especially in your prime years, 2 or 4 years of not doing it. So.
Right, whereas on the other hand, you could always go back for a business degree or a teaching degree or something like that after you've...
I know plenty of students, colleagues from Juilliard who did undergrad, fine, then, whatever, like PhD in particle physics, or, doctors and all that kind of stuff, like law students, So, in a way, an undergrad degree is an undergrad degree, right? So in terms of other degrees, but for music, if you want to continue on to music, it's important to do that first. So, that's how I justified it. Who knows what would have happened the other way, but.
Awesome. So I guess probably our final question for all of you is, for those, I guess the families out there, both here and online, that are watching and are on the fence about, is music right for me or for my kid? What sort of advice would you give them to think about when they're going through that journey that you wish someone had given you?
I think the first litmus test is like how passionate this kid is about music, because if that's not the core reason, if that nucleus isn't there, then life as a musician poses its challenges. It's not like signing your death sentence by becoming a musician. It's certainly very doable, and you can have a very fulfilling life. So don't let people discourage you so much saying that that's like the wrong thing to do. But it will pose its challenges, and you have to be very open-minded and flexible, especially with the changing times. It's like we've gone through changing times. Social media, what? Like that wasn't a thing, right? So you have to be tenacious, flexible, open-minded, but at the core of it all, like that perseverance comes from a deep love for music. And if that's there, then let them really climb as high as they can and try auditioning for conservatories and see what comes from their heart.
Absolutely.
Well, it's very hard to know if the kid is gonna go into music in the future or not. But I think it's important to actually knowing how to play an instrument will help the kid in every way, because I'm not sure how many of you actually play an instrument, but it takes a lot of discipline, and just playing a good note on the violin, viola. Piano might be a little different, you can just click.
But two hands.
Two hands. But being able to play, like say, 5 seconds of music, you need to focus maybe 20 different things. How you hold the bow, how you place your fingers, how much pressure you put. There are so many things that you need to focus on, and that helps with focusing and also how to, what's the word? Multitask in the future. So that'll help with studying as well. So I think learning an instrument is definitely very good for the kids.
Yeah. I think maybe in a more practical sense, if you are already studying music and you're talented and you don't know if you want to do it, try going to a music festival. I feel like my freshman year at undergrad felt like a long music festival that you were there for the whole time. And it depends on the music festival, but I went to Aspen when I was in high school, and that was, you pretty much practice all day, you hang out with musicians all day, there's concerts every night, there are wonderful teachers there, chamber music, everything. So I think at least you'll know if you enjoy the atmosphere of a conservatory if you do something like that. But I think what Siwoo said about really loving music is important. You have to not be able to go a day without, I don't know about playing your instrument, but at least listening or thinking about music, right? I'm sure, I could go a day without thinking about math or technology, but music is always, I find it just stuck in my head sometimes, kind of annoyingly, but it's there. And I think it's probably the same with all of us. We get withdrawal if we don't
That's right.
touch our instrument. So, and our muscles start hurting even though we're not doing anything. And that's something that each person has to ask themselves, like, am I going to do it? Because like Siwoo said, like being a musician is great, and it's a really actually a privileged career to have. Like, imagine getting paid to do something you love, right? That's like, there's not many jobs in the world, I think, that fit that description. But it can also be super stressful and not really worth it if you don't love music. There's too much uncertainty and a lot of rejection and disappointment that if you don't love it, I think it becomes really torturous. Martha Argerich just famously hates performing, and she plays well. I mean, there are people that can get by somehow, but I think, mere mortals, we have to take care of our hearts as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. Any other thoughts before we call it a night?
Do we have people who have questions? I mean, I don't know if we want to open out to the audience. It's always nice to hear from people who are in attendance. Yeah. Anybody? You can raise your hand or... Yeah, John?
Have you thought of transcribing the other movements in the octet?
Sure. I have not. Mostly because I like this movement the best, so I wanted to describe it. I'm not sure all of it would work on the piano as well. It just depends. So I kind of sit down and improvise a little bit actually on it before I actually write it down and make sure it works. Because sometimes you just can't. You play and you're like, I just rather listen to it. It's better in the original form. And it is better in the original form still, but it's fun to play. So.
May I ask, do nerves sometimes get in the way of your performance? Is that a problem? Where it is
For sure.
musicians who are fine, who cannot perform publicly because they just get too rattled?
Yeah, I would say that's like something you get used to. And also like perspective. Instead of thinking that I'm nervous, think about, oh, I'm excited and my body's reacting and now I'm superhuman, and take advantage of it. And maybe just like slow down the tempo slightly because you know that with the nerves you may speed up, but it really heightens your focus. It's a great thing. So yeah, just perspective and also just getting used to it. As soon as you start playing in front of people multiple times, then you become desensitized to the act of feeling nervous that people are watching you or something. Yes.
First of all, you are all extraordinary musicians.
Oh, thank
It's been a pleasure listening to you. I had a question about the Ravel. It seems to me that he was playing with the audience. He was making fun. Am I correct? And I'm wondering how that piece was received at that time, which is very advanced, avant-garde, that period, I think. Okay, could you comment on that?
Sure. Well, I mean, that's a very complex question, actually. I'd say, I mean, there are a couple instances where I find can be like very humorous. Like for instance, like after the cadenza piano enters, we have these little variations, and then it comes to like a complete stop, where it could kind of maybe end, perhaps. And I mean, I've been in performances of it where people just start clapping there. And then we tack on a whole new like gypsy hoedown right afterwards. Very playful in nature, and he gives you the liberty. He writes all these fancy French words about what to do with the speed, the push and pull. But essentially, he's just telling you to like just be flirty and fun. Yeah, and I think I actually haven't read any reviews about like the premiere of the performance, but it's become a staple of the violin repertoire. It was originally written for just violin and piano, and then he orchestrated all of it into a wonderful. Maurice Ravel is an incredible orchestrator. You can just give him like chopsticks and he'll make it sound amazing with the orchestra. So I highly recommend checking it out on like Spotify or YouTube.
Well, I did want to say a little thing about the nerves thing. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I was put on stage at a young age. Like, I think my first recital was like full. Like, actually, I remember looking at the program. I was like, I played that much music. It was like almost an hour of music at like age 8 or something like that. And I think when you're young enough, you can't process. Like, you don't really know the gravity of the situation. You practice and you go on stage and you do what you practiced. And especially if, like, my parents were pretty easygoing. There was not really the pressure of, like, you have to do this. It was just, you took piano lessons and your teacher wants you to play recital, you play recital. Which is not necessarily true for all music students. So I think I was lucky in that respect that there was no, like, emotional baggage for me being on stage. And then I, kept doing it till now, and it's there are days where if I know someone's in the audience that I care about or is important, or if I feel less prepared for something, then my nerves will go up and down. But I think it's important to embrace it and not to fight it, like Siwoo was saying. It's part of the performance, and I think I tell my students, as you are getting older, you're a kid and you're practicing, you're not only practicing the technique, but you're actually getting to know yourself better. And once you know yourself well, mentally, physically, you know how to deal with and to cajole yourself in the right mindset so that you can perform your best on stage. It can be mental, it can be something, like we have a mutual friend, Steven, he told me 1 hour before performance he has a banana, and then 30 minutes before he has another banana, and that routine helps him, It's potassium is good for your muscles, Potassium is good for your muscles, so that's scientifically good. But just having the routine also calms you down, that something is normal, is stable. And I think psychologically that's important. So, if you have anything to add to that.
Right. I think being nervous and being excited, there's a very fine line. And I think it's better to be a little nervous than not feeling anything on stage. If you're nervous, it means like you care about the concert, you care about how you present yourself on stage, and that way you can improve better. And if you ask any soloist or any musician that performs frequently, if you ask them if they get nervous, they probably won't say they get nervous. They will say they get very excited, because the two words are very different, but they actually feel quite similar, I think.
Yeah, I think at a certain point in your career as a musician or as a performer, the only 2 times that you'll get nervous are probably when you know that you haven't prepared, or 2, that like your priorities are in the wrong place, that you want to impress someone, or you just want to, it's not about the music anymore, and that those are, if you just think about the music and you're a seasoned performer and you practice, chances are you won't be nervous, you'll most likely be excited.
Right, absolutely. Without further ado, I'd like to hand thank you all for your wisdom and sharing your thoughts on your career in music. I'd like to hand the podium back to Mingyi.
Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Please, Bryce. Thank you so much. It's wonderful music and for sharing such beautiful experience. And I think we should change the name of the program. Should be How to Become a Successful Professional. And the answer is to create your opportunities for the 21st century. That was really very inspiring. Thank you for sharing that with us. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. And you can contact them. They're on YouTube. They're on Instagram. Just they keep producing. They keep creating. Please follow them. And thank you very much for coming. And I also want to thank the staff of Flushing Town Hall for hosting this event. And Ellen Kodak, who's not here, but she's a strong supporter of the programming here. And also thank you very much for those online listening to this program. I hope you all enjoy this program and have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the wonderful spring weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey!
Reggae, 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 reggae.